Big Apple Blitz with Anthony Rivardo and Matt O'Leary.
Hello and welcome to another Big Apple Blitz here on the channel. What is going on? Matt O'Leary, joined as always by my good buddy Anthony Rivardo. Anthony, how's it going, my friend?
It's going better than it was the last few days for me. Late Monday night, had to watch the Giants lose on prime time to Pittsburgh, and then later on that night came down with food poisoning, so it's been a tough few days, but I'm recovered just in time for Halloween. Happy Halloween to everybody watching the show. I'm in costume, technically. I'm Batman. That's what I'm going to say for the rest of the day. But yeah, I'm excited to discuss. Got another primetime matchup for one of these New York teams, for better or for worse. The Jets play tonight, so there's definitely a lot to unpack.
Yeah, we'll get into some Giants takeaways from the matchup against the Steelers, and then preview this divisional matchup for them in the second half of the show. But figured we'd start with the Jets because they play a game tonight. Quick turnaround after we kind of tore them apart on Monday's show, but still quick turnaround with the short week. Thursday Night Football at home against the Houston Texans. I still feel nothing for this game. I am not excited to watch them play. I wouldn't go as far as saying I'm like dreading it, but it's just this feeling of numb that has been all too familiar to me as a Jet fan over the last, I'm going to say 5 or so years, where you just go into the season and you're so out of it, and it kind of doesn't really matter. And that just really sucks. Like, that should not be the case for Jet fans right now. I don't think that anyone thought going into this year that you'd be going into the Thursday night matchup against the Houston Texans and being like, yeah, I don't really care about this game. I think most people thought this would be like some sort of AFC positional race in the seeding for playoffs potentially, and that could not be further from the truth, as one team is 2-6 and the other is 6-2.
Yeah, this was one that you probably circled on the preseason calendar and said this should be an exciting, pivotal matchup for the season. And instead, like you said, it's just not that at all, with one team being 2-6 and the other 6-2. I know you told me before we went live that somehow the Jets are favored in this game. That was very shocking to learn. I don't know how that's the case. I think Houston's a great team, and this should be another tough one for the Jets. But yeah, it just highlights how lost the hope is for the season. I mean, you're in week 9 now, and you're just looking at these really good teams that you're going up against and feeling like there's no chance, and feeling like you don't have any hope. Even if you do somehow win this game, what does that even mean for your future when you are 2-6 and you'd be 3-6? It's not a vast improvement anyway. So it's a really tough time for both Giants and Jets fans, but I'm happy that we get to have these therapy sessions on Mondays and Thursdays.
Yeah, Jets currently listed as 1-point favorites. That number has been between 1.5, I believe up to 2 at one point. And like, I get it. The Texans are without their top 2 wide receivers. No Nico Collins. This is his last game on IR. Stephon Diggs, unfortunately, just went down with injury last week. But to me, that doesn't even really matter. And I understand, like, the Texans passing attack has been a little disappointing for where their expectations were going into this year. But Joe Mixon has played in 5 games. He is averaging almost 5 yards a carry. He's got 5 touchdowns and over 500 rushing yards. Why would the Texans even attempt to pass in this game? They should just run the ball right down the Jets' throat, because they have shown zero ability through the first 8 games of the year to stop the run. And the rushing attack, not only Joe Mixon, but the Texans are a very good run blocking offensive line. To me, this is a clear disadvantage for the Jets in this game, and something, if I'm Houston and Bobby Slowick, I'd be trying to expose.
No doubt. And unfortunately, there's plenty to expose with a struggling Jets team. And The Houston Texans have had their struggles as well in recent weeks, but I think you said it, Bobby Slowick, one of the best minds, and I think that offense is honestly due for a bounce back game, ready to pop. And unfortunately, this could be the night. I'm still a big CJ Stroud believer, no matter what, even if he's had his struggles in recent weeks. I think that Stroud is still MVP level player. And even without Stephon Diggs, who just tore his ACL, I still think, and without Nico Collins, I still think that this offense has more than enough playmakers and more than enough talent. Maybe, you know what, thinking about it, maybe that's why they're listed as underdogs. Maybe it's just due to the injuries, losing Stephon Diggs on a short week, not having Nico Collins. Perhaps that is what's bringing them down. But I don't even think that's enough to slow down CJ Stroud. I think that he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, and it's not like the Jets don't have injuries of their own. I mean, right now, you have Tony Adams going to be out, Ashton Davis out, Leaky Fotu, interior defensive lineman, Alan Lazard, CJ Mosley, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Chaz Surratt are all out for this game. And then you have a couple like Morgan Moses, starting right tackle, questionable and was limited all week in practice with the knee. You know, it's the Jets again have the injuries of their own too, so it's not like they have this clean bill of health, and it's only the Texans in this game that are dealing with injuries. So to me, I think it'll be close. Like, I don't anticipate the Texans like just completely running away with this. And almost every single Jets loss this year, excluding maybe the Steelers and the 49ers, have been very close games and down to the wire. But they've shown me no reason to believe that they could either one, close out this game, or two, not make the mistakes in a tight game to actually end up on the positive side of this.
Yeah, mistake-free football is like always the key to winning in the NFL. But obviously, when you're a 2-6 team going up against a 6-2 team with a very great defensive-minded coach, I think it just becomes even more important. And I will say, highlighting back to the Houston Texans offense, just because I noticed their offensive line does have a couple of weak points on the interior. That could be something that the Jets try to expose. But you do also have to keep in mind that Joe Mixon has been playing some excellent football, and the rushing game has been really the key to success for the Houston Texans offense throughout the season, surprisingly enough. And so if the Jets are going to find a way to slow down this Houston Texans offense, I think it starts with making them one-dimensional, making them run the football, and then stopping the run. And then once you do that, they don't have the playmakers that they had several weeks ago. I think that's going to be the key to victory.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And you specifically mentioned the interior of the offensive line. And I think, for me at least, looking at the Jets' interior defensive line, Quinnen Williams got off to a slow start this year, but I think he's played really good football the last 3 weeks or so. He was very active in the game against New England. I thought he stood out as a major positive against Buffalo as well. And Pittsburgh had some pressures as well. So I think him coming on right now, like, this kind of feels a little too late for a lot of these things, like the Devontae Adams trade or Hassan Reddick coming back. But if you're looking for some sort of positive, Quinnen Williams starting to look like Quinnen Williams again, I think is something that this team desperately needs if they're still trying to get this thing back on track.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Quinnen Williams is one of the most important players to that Jets defense. Now, let me ask you, what's the status of Will McDonald going into this one? I saw earlier this week that he was listed as questionable. Is he playing tonight?
Yeah, he's expected to play, which is obviously huge for this team. He was limited on Monday, but was a full participant on Tuesday and Wednesday. So he's fully expected to go, which is important. He's looked like their best pass rusher this year. I know obviously they got Hassan Reddick back against New England, but he didn't really do all that much in that game. So my expectations on a short week aren't particularly high, and he's also dealing with a neck injury. So he's playing banged up after just one game. So they're going to need Will McDonald, who's been their best pass rusher this season.
Yeah, definitely going to need Will McDonald. I didn't know that about Hassan Reddick. That's honestly mind-boggling. But you know what? It kind of makes sense when you don't play football and you don't show up to training camp and you don't show up to preseason and all of that stuff, and you just throw yourself into the fire during the regular season. You're probably bound to get a little bit banged up. So surprising, but unsurprising at the same time, and just disappointing news to receive.
Yeah, definitely disappointing news to receive with Hassan Reddick, and not surprising at all when you are, holding out and, come back into the season and aren't in football shape, you're kind of asking for something to happen. And, he's going to play in this game, but he was limited on Monday, full participant the last 2 days. To me, again, it's going to be really challenging for this defense, even with Hassan Reddick and with Will McDonald in there. Yeah, they should be able to get some pass rush. And yes, the Texans aren't, um, their passing attack isn't as strong as what it was a year ago. But I keep seeing people point to the Jets beating the Texans last year and winning in pretty dominant fashion. They actually knocked CJ Stroud out of that game, but that Jets defense last year, at that point in the season too, especially, was looking completely different than this version of the Jets defense. So I don't really see it as a one-to-one comparison, or really, I don't think you could take much out of that game and apply it to this one, which is now almost a year later.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think every year everything changes, right? Like every NFL team is completely different after one season. I mean, if you're talking about a matchup between the Jets and the Texans a year ago, you're talking about one where Aaron Rodgers wasn't even present. And so whether you're talking about the offense or the defense in that game, you're still talking about the whole shape of the game being different because of that. So, even having, we say this all the time about the Giants, having a better quarterback helps your defense in many ways. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, it is a totally different game. And so it can't be treated like the same one.
No, absolutely not. And just a few more notes in this one before we start getting into our Giants talk. But the Jets will be trotting out a new kicker this week because Greg Zuerlein goes on IR. So it wasn't even like, hey, we're just gonna cut Zuerlein for hitting at 60% this year and being a major factor in 3 losses this year. The Jets signed 2 guys to their practice squad. We don't know as of right now. Again, it's game day. We're a few hours, but it was Riley Patterson and Spencer Schrader added to the practice squad. Spencer Schrader, I believe, was in Washington this preseason and ironically lost the kicking competition to Austin Seibert, who was in camp with the Jets. And then Riley Patterson, I believe, kicked for Jacksonville 2 years ago and bounced around last year in a couple different spots.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend like I know either of these kickers, but I will say hopefully that there is some sort of improvement over what we were getting prior with Greg the Leg. Just tough season for him, and now headed to IR. I guess that's an easier break. You don't have to technically bench him. You send them to injured reserve, and now you just call up somebody from the practice squad. But the hope is that somebody makes an impact and can hit with a little bit more efficiency than what Zuerlein was doing, because it was costing the Jets games. And I've seen it too this season with the Giants. Kicking woes have cost the Giants games. Kicking woes across the league have cost teams games, and it's done it to the Giants, the Jets. And I think that you look at some of the best teams in the NFL right now, they have some of the best kickers in the NFL. I think there's a correlation, and I think it's also a causation. So it's important to get that kicker position right. And unfortunately for the Jets, Zuerlein just hasn't been the man this year, but hopefully one of these guys off the practice squad can step in and figure it out.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's hard to be a downgrade from what the Jets are dealing with. I'm not going to pretend that either one of these guys are, saviors. Are going to be long-term answers, but hopefully kind of just putting a Band-Aid on a big issue here. All right, let's get into our score predictions for this one. I have the Texans 24-17. I know the Jets are favorites at home here. I just don't see a way with anything, with how they've looked the last 5 weeks during this losing streak. I just don't believe they're going to have enough to beat this Texans team. I know the Texans are, in some people's eyes, are a fraudulent 6-2. Like, they haven't really beaten anybody and they're banged up. And maybe that's why the line is the way that it is. But even still, I don't think it's comparable. And I have very little faith that the Jets can win this game. Joe Mixon has a big day. I think Rodgers does okay, kind of similar performances to the last couple of weeks. No interceptions, but not a offensive explosion. And Texans win by a touchdown. What's your feel for this one?
Yeah, it's Halloween, so I'm going to have some fun, and I'm going to predict the upset. I'm going New York Jets 31-28. That's a lot of points, but it is the 31st of October. Happy Halloween. The Jets are going to put up 31 on the 31st and somehow sneak away with a win at home. Figured I'd have some fun. predict the upset. I could see this one going either way because, listen, while the Houston Texans are the better team, I expect the Houston Texans probably will win this. I could see a world where the Jets end up sneaking it out just because they have to. Sometimes you got to drink some cayenne pepper water and you got to go out there and play balls to the wall and you got to find a way to sneak out a win versus a good team. And if anybody's going to do it, well, we hope that Aaron Rodgers is the man to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and predict the Jets win.
You know what happened the last time the Jets played on Halloween? Let's see how good your memory is.
No, I don't remember, actually.
Okay. Well, last time the Jets played on Halloween, 2021, it was the Mike White game where they upset the Bengals and he threw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I don't know. Weird stuff happens on Halloween. You never know.
Bang. There you go. Maybe it'll happen again.
The Mike White game 2.0, this time against the Texans. All right, let's get into the Giants. We have a lot to get to with the Giants here. Before we get into the preview against Washington, we haven't spoken since the Giants' most recent loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So figured we'd start there. I know we're a few days removed now, but feeling any better or any different after Monday's performance?
Man, everything that we've been saying is just so clearly on display about Daniel Jones. Like, the guy just stinks, and I'm so tired of watching him play football. They had opportunities at the end of that game to pull off game-winning comeback drives, and I just knew that they weren't going to. Like, I had zero faith that he was actually going to turn it around and complete the comeback. I was watching that game like, when's the interception going to happen? When is the fumble going to happen? And nevertheless, he did both of those things. He fumbled in the clutch and he threw an interception in the clutch. And I just knew that he was going to choke in the fourth quarter. Like, if there was anything that I was willing to bet my life on, it would have been that the Giants were not going to complete that comeback on Monday night versus the Steelers. As soon as I saw the way that they were playing and when they had the ball with an opportunity to make the comeback in the fourth, I just knew that they didn't have a chance. And that is strictly because I have zero faith in the quarterback position. I don't understand why he's still the starter. I think it's completely ridiculous. I think that Brian Dable is playing with fire. Yes, John Mara said that he does not anticipate any firings or changes to the front office or coaching staff this offseason. Things can change. And if you don't make the necessary changes to your roster throughout the course of the season to win some games, that thing that's going to change is your job security. So I think that Brian Dable, like I said, is playing with fire. I think it's utterly ridiculous what he's doing here. He needs to make a quarterback change. But if there is one positive to take away, it's that stat line underneath Daniel Jones. Tyrone Tracy, 20 carries, 145 yards, and 145-yard touchdown run. Shockingly enough, Devin Singletary, only 2 carries. It's very clear and obvious now who the RB1 is. It's Tyrone Tracy, and I'm very excited to see his emergence this season.
Yeah, you should be. Tyrone Tracy has shown a lot of positives so far this year, and I think, 9 games left. We're going to see if he's capable of being this team's RB1. I think he's shown some flashes that, that could be the case, but some consistency down the stretch, I think, would go a really long way to proving that he's the guy. Couple thoughts. The 2 turnovers from Daniel Jones in the fourth quarter or at the end of the game here, just predictable, ridiculous. It's, I feel like we're watching the same movie over and over again. This game went almost exactly how I thought it would be. It was tied 9-9 at halftime. The Giants, I thought, did enough, especially defensively, to hang around in this game. And granted, I know they gave up 17 points in the second half, but eventually the dam just breaks, right? Like, if your offense can't do anything, the defense can only hold on for so long. And, they let up a lot of yardage on the ground, 5.4 yards per attempt. Russell Wilson had a really efficient night, 278 yards on only 28 passing attempts and a touchdown. But just another frustrating one, man. Like, I don't know what the Giants see in keeping to run Daniel Jones out there in his 6th season in the league and expecting something different to happen. And now drops to 1-15 in primetime games. It's a full season essentially of a sample size there.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. Like you said it right there. Everything you said, completely true. I don't understand what they see. Again, I think they're playing with fire. They're risking their jobs every single week that they put him out there. I think the leash should be so short. He doesn't even seem to have a short leash at all. I just don't get it. Like, every week he makes these boneheaded mistakes. He makes terrible plays. I mean, even Brian Dable kind of threw him under the bus and said that strip sack that they let up was Daniel Jones's fault. He was supposed to shift and he was supposed to put the tight end on the right side to chip. on TJ Watt, and he didn't do that because he got distracted pre-snap. This is not even from my mouth. This is from Brian Dable's mouth. Brian Dable said that Daniel Jones was distracted by the coverage pre-snap, didn't make the proper shift, and it resulted in a strip sack. I mean, if that's the thing, though, is I always argue with Giants fans because they'll bring up box score stats and these bullshit EPA metrics and be like, he's not that bad. He's playing good football. And it's like, but there's so many other nuances to football that cannot show up in EPA or any of the box score stats that you don't understand unless you're in the coach's room or if you watch the film. And that felt like a perfect example of that. On the box score stats, what does that play go down as? A sack surrendered by Jermaine Illuminor. What should that go down as? A complete egregious error by the quarterback because he forgot to shift and put the tight end on that side of the offensive line. And that's the quarterback's fault. That never shows up in the box score. And it is a team game, which is what Tony, the GM, is saying in the comments. It absolutely is. But when you are playing as a team, the defense played a very solid game on Monday night. Tyrone Tracy went for 145 yards. All the Giants needed was their quarterback to score a single touchdown, and he couldn't find a way to do it. So it's a team game, but this entire team is being held back by one position. So why not see if another quarterback can just step in and spark something? Not saying Drew Lock is a better player, not saying that he's excellent, not saying that he's going to throw 3 touchdowns in a game, but maybe he sparks something. Maybe he connects on one deep shot and it changes the course of one game. Just at least give it a try. You have nothing to lose at this point at 2-6 in a dying season.
Yeah, and Justin follows it up saying Daniel Jones honestly needs to be benched. The Giants keep putting him out there. It's malpractice. I just hope and pray that the way he takes it, he doesn't get injured and to avoid his injury clause. It's so true because something, and again, I really feel like we're beating a dead horse. We've made these points every single week, and even going back to before the season started, we talked about this. But he takes some of the most egregious sacks that I have ever seen and just takes unnecessary hits when the ball could be out. He can move around in the pocket, make some plays, but instead just it has zero feel for pressure around him and usually takes a big hit. I think there's a chance he could get hurt because it's happened essentially every year in his career anyway, and he keeps taking these big hits.
Yeah, the probability of Daniel Jones getting injured is higher than the probability of him not based on his career history. He has been injured every single season of his career except for the anomaly of the 2022 season. It's the anomaly in every way. Daniel Jones finally threw for over 3,000 yards. The Giants finally had a winning season and won a playoff game. Daniel Jones finally stayed healthy. That season is just an anomaly, and the Giants keep looking at that season and telling themselves that they did things right that year and they need to emulate it. You are wrong. You just got lucky that season. You had everything break your way down to Daniel Jones finally staying healthy for a full season. Inevitably, he is going to get injured this season based on the probability of his career has passed. So what the Giants need to do is wise up here, cut their losses, just take him out of the lineup and protect this team's future. Because the amount of fans that are going to riot, scream, and just storm the freaking stadium if Daniel Jones's injury clause gets triggered is going to be unbelievable. The Giants need to do everything in their power to prevent that from happening.
You're right. They absolutely do. And they do play this week with a chance to snap a 3-game losing streak as they host the Washington Commanders. The last time these two teams played, week 2, 21-18 game. It was a little bit of a wild one. Usually Daniel Jones plays pretty well against Washington historically, but kind of just wanted to gauge your feel for this game going into it, and then some of the key matchups as well.
I have no hope in the Giants to win this game versus Washington. Even though Daniel Jones historically has played well against Washington, I don't think that that's going to factor into this one. This is a different Washington team. Going into this season, Alex and I on Fireside Giants kept trying to tell fans this in the comment section. They kept saying, well, at least we got 2 free wins on the schedule versus Washington. And we were like, hold your horses, guys. They just had one of the best NFL drafts of any team in the league. I loved their draft, not just their first round pick in Jaden Daniels, but I thought rounds 2, 3, they drafted some great talents on the defensive side of the ball as well. Terry McLaurin now looks like a true WR1 once again because he has a legitimate quarterback throwing him the ball. And Jaden Daniels, I mean, he's not easy to slow down. And now that Washington's coming off of that incredible comeback win versus the Bears off of the Hail Mary, you know that they've got all the momentum in the world. They have an experienced head coach. a head coach who, as I've mentioned, has gotten the best of Daniel Jones many times in the past. He was formerly the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys. The Cowboys loved to beat up on Daniel Jones when Dan Quinn was the head coach or was the defensive coordinator over there. So now as head coach of Washington, I don't think that it's easy going for Daniel Jones anymore when he goes up against Washington. I think this is going to be a tough one, but if there is any key matchup to watch, it is probably just going to be Tyrone Tracy Jr. versus Washington's defense if Tyrone Tracy is able to play. I think he's concussed. If he gets through concussion protocol and plays, I think the Giants just need to keep handing him the ball and hoping that he really just carries this offense.
Yeah, that's got to be the hope in this one. For the Giants, whose defense has played well this year and did a relatively good job holding the Washington Commanders offense in check the last time they played. They allowed 21 points. If memory serves correct, it was 7 field goals in that game, though. For Washington.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
No, which is crazy in itself. But anyway, regardless, the difference is it feels like Jaden Daniels has really hit his stride since then. He played a pretty solid game. He went 79 completion percentage, 226 yards, and also ran for another 44. But he has put up some monster numbers since then. And I know the completion percentage was pretty low against Chicago at just 55.3%, the lowest of his career so far. But he threw for over 300 yards for the first time in his career. So I know the Giants defense, we've given them a lot of credit this year. I think they've played hard and have definitely been their best unit by far. But I think matchup wise, this is a really tough spot against a hot young quarterback who's he's just feeling it right now. And he's clearly healthy. I know he came out of that game against Carolina, but played last week, made a huge play on the final play of the game. And I just think they're going to continue to ride the momentum off of that week.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you mentioned that week 2 matchup with the Giants and Commanders where they held them to only field goals. Again, I thought the defense played great in that game. I got a lot of flack for that because we got ran all over. But I think if the defense keeps the offense out of the end zone, they did their job. That was the take that I had after that game. It was a devastating loss. Ball went through Malik Neighbors' hands on 4th down. We all know the story there. But the Giants have to understand that matchup is not going to be 1-for-1 the same going into this matchup because it is a different Jaden Daniels all these weeks later with more experience under his belt. And it is a different team, just as the Washington Commanders have gotten to gel more and really ascend to the top, not only of the NFC East, but of among the teams in the NFC. So this is going to be a tough one for sure. While the Giants defense is the only unit that I have true faith in and true confidence in to make plays and do its job. I always say this every week. There's only so much the defense can do when the offense can't score a damn point. The defense gets gassed by the 4th quarter, or honestly, they just lose their own confidence. Like they just don't feel like doing it any longer. I think we've seen that several times with Deonte Banks this season where he's given up on plays. And honestly, I think that if the Giants offense was scoring points, none of those players would be giving up on plays. If the Giants offense was scoring points, everybody would be trying their asses off. But because the offense is unable to score, it's just really hard to keep things going as a defense. So unless the Giants offense can put up an abundance of points versus Washington, I think this is going to be another tough matchup.
Yeah, I think so too. Sal comments, he says, I have a question for Ant and Matt. Besides getting a rookie quarterback, what bridge quarterback do you think the Giants can get? Would rather have our rookie quarterback sit a year or two instead of being thrown out into the fire. I know someone you mentioned a lot in the offseason was Sam Darnold. Are you still in on that? Is there another name that the Giants should look for?
Yeah, I mean, I would love Sam Darnold. I would have loved him this past offseason. I thought that was the perfect idea for the Giants. Obviously, that didn't work out. Now he's, arguably comeback player of the year candidate or maybe even MVP candidate if he gets back on track here with the Vikings. If he's back as a free agent this offseason, the Vikings choose not to extend him. Yeah, I would totally explore that. I would totally consider bringing him back. Only concern I would have, though, is the fact that his last stint in New York with the Jets wasn't so pretty. So I don't know if he really wants to come back to New York. But then outside of him, I like Jameis Winston as well, who Justin just mentioned. That was another name that I mentioned in the offseason. I really liked Sam Darnold and Jameis Winston as 2 of the top options for the Giants to sign. They didn't go with either. They went with Drew Lock, and now they don't even trust Drew Lock to take a snap. So here we are. But outside of those guys, I've looked ahead to the offseason, and there really aren't a ton of bridge quarterbacks who entice me. Like, I don't think that there are a bunch of guys who stand out and tell you that, they're going to be able to win games with this team. In fact, I think more likely avenue is that the Giants are going to have to explore the trade market and find somebody that way, whether that be JJ McCarthy, also from the Vikings, and he's not really a bridge. He's you're going to have to plug him in and get him to start immediately. But if you're looking for quarterbacks, I think the trade market might be a more fruitful endeavor for the Giants. Even if you want to look at Stafford, I think the rumors of him getting traded midseason were always completely ridiculous. But in the offseason, that could be a possibility. So I think once we get to the offseason, we can look around and see who's available on the trade market.
I think Jameis and Malik Neighbors would be a lot of fun. I don't know how many games they would win, but I don't know. Jameis could at least allow you to evaluate the rest of this roster. I mean, he's gonna turn the ball over. He always does, but I think he would be a guy that you could feel comfortable starting for a year until you feel that quarterback's ready. Maybe you draft Cam Ward in the top 5. You have him sit for the first 12 games of the year. You play him the last 5 down the stretch. It doesn't sound like a horrible plan. I've heard a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, listen, a quarterback room featuring Jameis Winston, Tommy DeVito, and one of either Cam Ward or Garrett Nussmeier sounds just absolutely perfect to me. Like, that is everything that I need. And one of the reasons why is because Jameis Winston, Mr. 30 and 30, having the opportunity to help develop those two gunslingers and Cam Ward and Garrett Nussmeier, the next two probably potential 30 and 30 candidates in the league. Get me one of those guys and get me Jameis Winston. He will teach them how to play aggressive, throw the ball downfield, and play without the fear of making mistakes, which is honestly what's holding this Giants team back. They play with the fear of making mistakes. You got to go out there and you got to play football like it doesn't matter. Next play is over. Let's just move on. The Giants don't do that with Daniel Jones. They're always worried about making that next mistake. I just want the Giants to go out there and play football. And Jameis Winston would do that. He's doing that right now with Cleveland, and it sparked a win for them versus the Ravens. If he was on this team and we had either Cam Ward or Garrett Nussmeier, two gunslinging quarterbacks who do put the ball in harm's way, yes, but also make explosive plays, I think that would be a match made in heaven.
Justin says that Cam Ward is his favorite college quarterback. He is the best quarterback in the nation. I did not think that I would have to do a deep dive on the quarterback class this early, but in my very limited start and dig in, I have come to the same conclusion. I think I like Cam Ward the best out of these college guys.
Yeah, I like Cam Ward the best. I liked Cam Ward in last year's draft. I've told the story many times when he was at Washington State and he initially declared. I literally had a thumbnail made for my solo YouTube channel. It said gem and it had Cam Ward on it. I thought he was going to be the hidden gem in the 2024 NFL draft class. He ends up transferring over to Miami. I was worried about that. Thought that would be a problem. Miami doesn't really develop quarterbacks. Well, they've developed Cam Ward, and he does look like a future top 10 pick. If he lands with the New York Giants, I will be doing crazy things in public to celebrate.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe the other New York team. My team is getting Cam Ward instead.
I hope not. I hope not.
We can fight for him in the top 5.
That we can. Hey, listen, if Garrett Nussmeier does declare, I have a lot of concerns with him, particularly because of his inexperience. Mm-hmm. But man, the tools and traits are there. I watch him and I do get reminded of Josh Allen. And so inevitably my brain goes Josh Allen, Brian Dable, Garrett Nussmeier. That's what I want to see. So if it's not Cam Ward, I'm on the Nuss bus.
Yeah, I think that could work. And again, probably have to sit him if he's a little bit raw at the start. You don't want to get in an Anthony Richardson type of situation. But back to, as we're in the final few minutes here of the show, you should go back to this Giants-Washington matchup and start looking at score predictions and how you think this thing is going to play out. How you feeling going up against the surprising 6-2 Washington Commanders?
I think it's going to be ugly. I think the Giants offense is going to struggle to score. The main reason why, they're playing at home, and Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown at home. And my God, I don't even know how long, 600 something days. So I don't think the Giants are going to win this. I don't think that they have an offense capable of winning NFL games right now, especially when they're at home. And I think that they're ultimately going to fall short because of the offense's inability to score a single touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, Washington has scored four times. They've scored 30 points or more. They've gone over 40 points twice, once against Arizona, once against Carolina. I don't think they're going to get up that high. I think the Giants keep them under 30, but they just have shown me absolutely zero ability that they could get in the end zone and put up points, especially at home. Here's the number of points they've scored in each home game this year. Against the Vikings, 6 points. Against Dallas, 15 points. Against the Bengals, 7 points. Against the Eagles, 3 points. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I'm feeling like 27-13, something like that.
Yeah, I'm going 28-10. I think the one touchdown that the Giants get is going to be from Tyrone Tracy, though. I don't expect we get the first Malik Neighbors home touchdown, not until Drew Lock is throwing the ball. But hey, you know what? Maybe at halftime, the Giants make a switch and Drew Lock puts up some points in the second half. That's the only way that I could see the Giants putting up more than one touchdown in this game. But I just have no faith in this team. I'm really like, my confidence is shot. My hope is shot. Like, I'm tired, man.
Yeah, I feel that. I really do. The state of both of these New York teams, I think, have both Jets and Giants fans a little disappointed. And with both baseball teams' runs now over and not ending with a championship, I think the reality is starting to set in a little bit for some of these, Jets and Giants fans who were maybe a little distracted by the Mets and the Yankees the last few weeks.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that beautiful distraction anymore for the Yankees. That was really tough last night. Very upsetting. But hey, man, at least they gave us some hope. Out of all these New York sports teams, at least the baseball ones actually did something decent this year.
Time to hop on the Knicks bandwagon. Your Rangers are looking good. Don't ask me about the Islanders. They're horrible. So, yeah. Any final thoughts here before we put a bow on this episode on a Thursday?
I pray to God that on Monday we are not talking about Daniel Jones as the starting quarterback.
That push notification. It's coming. It's going to be. They've already announced Daniel Jones will continue to start for the New York Giants.
I can't take it anymore. I need a change.
That'll do it for us on this one. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to Anthony over on Fireside Giants. Me, I'm over at Matt O'Leary NY. That'll do it. I'm Matt. He's Anthony, and we'll catch you next time.